Welcome to the Explainer.
All right, let's jump right in. For the longest time, the story in AI has been super simple, right? Bigger is always better. Bigger models, more data, higher scores on the tests. But what if that's totally the wrong race to be running? What if the next giant leap forward isn't about building one massive superbrain, but about creating a whole team of specialized ones? This is a huge shift, and it's going to change, well, pretty much everything from how our jobs will work to how we defend ourselves from cyber attacks.
So, where does this all start? Well, it kicks off with a massive announcement, the launch of Google's Gemini 3. On paper, this thing was an absolute monster. It was reporting explosively good performance on some of the toughest standardized tests for AI, what we call benchmarks. You can kind of think of them like the SATs for an AI. And at first glance, you'd think, wow, that's a clear win. But the real story? Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than that.
And this is where things get really interesting. You'd expect the experts to be blown away, right? But the reaction was, well, kind of muted. This quote here from Tim Huang just nails it. It really shows you how much the thinking has changed. Getting a perfect score on the test, it just doesn't hit the same way it used to.
This really sums up the whole paradox perfectly. On one side, you've got these AIs that are just acing the tests, crushing these academic benchmarks. But then you try to use them in the real world, and the experience is, let's just say, a little different. The cracks really start to show.
So here's the thing. Even with all that power under the hood, Gemini 3 still struggles with some of the same old problems. It still hallucinates, where it just confidently makes stuff up. And it hates admitting it doesn't know something. It would much rather give you a completely wrong answer than just say, hey, I don't know. So yeah, it feels powerful for sure, but smarter? Not necessarily. And check out this perfect, kind of funny example of what I'm talking about. Marvin Uvar over at IBM Research asked Gemini for a workout plan, and it did a pretty good job. That is, until the very end, when it told her to eat nutritious food so she could grow. Now, Marv is a mother of two. As she said herself, she is way past growing age. It's such a simple, silly mistake, but it's exactly the kind of thing a human would never, ever get wrong.
So you have this huge gap, right, between what these things can do on a test and how they actually perform in the real world. And that gap is pushing the entire industry in a really fascinating new direction. Because if one single giant brain isn't the answer, then what is? Well, the new buzzword you're hearing everywhere is AI agents.
For so long, the dream was basically this one model to rule them all, right? This idea of a single massive AI that could do absolutely anything you threw at it. But the thing is, as researchers like Marina Danielewski have pointed out, that whole approach, it was never really going to work with the way these things are built. It was kind of a flawed goal from the very beginning.
So instead, she proposes something that sounds, well, a lot more like us. Why are we trying to build one single super genius when we could just build a team of specialists? It's just the division of labor, right? It's the idea that has powered human civilization forever, and now we're finally applying it to AI. And that right there is the core idea behind this whole agent revolution.
Okay, so what is an AI agent exactly? The best way to think about it is less like a simple chatbot and more like an autonomous worker. We're talking about an AI system that doesn't just give you an answer. No, it can actually create a plan, use tools like a web browser or a code editor to get the job done, and then, this is key, it can check its own work.
All right, so if the future is all about these teams of specialized AIs, that brings up a really big question. Who's going to build them? And more importantly, who's going to manage this new AI workforce? This is where the cool, big idea slams right into a very real, very tough engineering challenge.
Because right now, pretty much every developer out there is going through the same painful learning process. They start building an agent to do one specific thing, and they all run into the exact same roadblocks. They all rediscover the same problems over and over again. It's like if everyone on Earth was trying to invent the car from scratch, all at the same time.
And this is basically the journey that Marvi Univar says every developer is taking. You start small with a simple single agent. But pretty quickly, the job gets too complicated for just one. So you build another piece, a task decomposer, to break the job down into smaller chunks. And then, bam, before you even know it, you've accidentally built a whole system with multiple agents. It's a totally natural evolution, but it's super inefficient for everyone to have to figure this out on their own. So what's the solution? Well, it's to create standardized frameworks. A tool like IBM's Kuga, for example, you shouldn't think of it as the AI worker itself. Think of it more like the middle manager, or maybe the operating system for your whole AI team.
It's that supervisory layer that handles all the messy coordination, so the developers can just focus on building the specialist AIs that actually do the work.
Okay, so now that we've got our heads around this new idea of AI teams, let's talk about the real-world impact, because the conversation is really starting to shift. It's moving away from, will AI take our jobs, and toward a much more interesting question. How is AI going to change our jobs?
And to get at that question, researchers are building completely new ways to measure AI. Take the GDP-Val benchmark. This thing isn't about abstract math problems. No, it takes tasks from actual professions. We're talking lawyers, doctors, consultants, and it tests how well an AI can do real, economically valuable work.
And the first results coming out of this, they're honestly pretty stunning. On a whole bunch of these real-world professional tasks, the best AI models are already getting close to, well, near parity with the human experts they're being tested against. This isn't some far-off sci-fi future. This is what's possible, like, right now.
But of course, with that kind of incredible potential for good comes an equally powerful potential for bad. You gotta know that for every team of AI agents being built to help us, there's another one being built to do some real harm.
Just look at this number, 80 to 90%. That's how much of a sophisticated cyber attack a state-sponsored group was able to automate using the AI Claude. Anthropic, the company that makes it, just disclosed this, and it's one of the first really concrete examples we've seen of these AI agents being weaponized on a massive scale.
And it's the details here that are really, really alarming. The key thing to understand is just how little human oversight this whole thing needed. An entire complex hacking campaign. I mean, from the first bit of research all the way to the final attack, it was all planned and carried out by the AI. A human only had to jump in at like 4 to 6 critical moments. That is a massive force multiplier for the bad guys.
But here's the most important part of this whole story, and you really need to get this. The AI wasn't doing magic. It wasn't inventing some brand new, never-before-seen kind of hack. No, it was just finding and exploiting known standard security holes. The only difference, it could do it with a relentless, superhuman speed and at a scale we've just never seen before.
And that brings us to what this all means for you and me. The big takeaway from the experts wasn't some complicated new AI defense system. It was brutally simple. They just said, patch your software, people, do it for real, or you're going to get hacked. In this new world of AI-powered attacks, the boring fundamental stuff, like just keeping your software updated, is more critical than it has ever been.
So when we look ahead, maybe this single-minded obsession with just making AI more and more powerful is missing the bigger picture. Maybe the real challenge isn't just building bigger models. It's about building the systems, the frameworks, and the safeguards to actually manage a world that's going to be filled with millions of these autonomous AI teams, the good ones and the bad ones, all working right alongside us. That's the real new frontier.